Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're going to be doing something pretty fascinating.
Yeah.
We're diving into the world of ethics.
Right.
And we're using chapter 1 of a text that you're using to get a handle on this whole subject.
Yeah.
And it's amazing to me how ethics is not just like some modern thing.
Yeah.
You know, I was really surprised to find out how far back this stuff goes.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like ancient civilizations were dealing with these ideas
Absolutely.
thousands of years ago.
It's true.
It's incredible. Like in ancient Mesopotamia, some of the earliest written laws
Right.
weren't just about keeping order, but they were like this fusion
Yeah.
of law and religion and ethics
Yeah.
all wrapped up into one.
That's a great observation.
Right.
Yeah. It speaks to how intertwined
Yeah,
these concepts were and still are.
absolutely.
You know, those early societies recognize that a stable and flourishing community needs a shared moral compass.
Right. And it's not just Mesopotamia.
Yeah.
The ancient Egyptians had this whole concept called Ma'at.
Right.
It's truth, justice, and cosmic order, all rolled into one.
All in a one.
Like, talk about high stakes.
It really highlights how seriously they took ethical living.
Yeah.
Ma'at wasn't just a personal thing. It was about maintaining harmony in the entire universe.
Wow.
Imagine believing that your actions could tip the cosmic scales.
That puts things in perspective.
Right.
So before we get too deep into history,
Yeah.
can you give us a clear definition of ethics? What are we actually talking about here?
Yeah. So ethics at its core is about the principles that guide our choices and actions.
Okay.
It's about figuring out what's right and wrong, especially when things get complicated.
Yeah.
Think of it as a set of guidelines for navigating those tricky situations where your desires might clash with what's best for others, or even for society as a whole.
So it's like a moral compass helping us make sense of those gray areas where there's not always a clear-cut answer.
Exactly. And it's crucial on both a personal and societal level. On a personal level, ethics helps you decide how to act in a way that aligns with your values, like whether to return that extra $20 the cashier accidentally gave you.
Right, those everyday dilemmas where you have to make a choice.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But zooming out, ethics is also the glue that holds societies together.
Okay.
It builds trust, which is essential for cooperation, fairness, and justice.
Okay.
Without a shared ethical framework, it would be much harder to live together peacefully and productively.
So ethics is both about individual character and the well-being of the whole community.
Precisely.
Wow.
It's fascinating to see how these ideas have evolved over time.
Yeah.
Let's go back to those ancient civilizations you mentioned.
Okay.
Take the Code of Hammurabi in Mesopotamia.
Yeah.
One of the earliest known written legal codes.
The one with the eye for an eye principle.
Right.
It's intense,
It is.
but also kind of straightforward. You do something wrong,
Yeah.
there's a clear consequence.
Right. But the code wasn't just about punishment. It was also about establishing a sense of justice and fairness. That eye for an eye principle, while harsh, aimed to ensure that the punishment fit the crime, preventing excessive retribution.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So even though it seems simple on the surface, there's a deeper ethical idea behind it.
Exactly. And it's an idea that still resonates today. We still grapple with questions of proportional justice.
Yeah.
How to ensure that punishments are fair and truly reflect the severity of the crime.
Right.
The Code of Hammurabi, despite its ancient origins, sparks those conversations.
It's incredible to see how these ancient ideas still connect to modern issues.
They do.
Yeah.
And speaking of ancient ideas, the Egyptian concept of Ma'at offers a fascinating contrast.
Right.
Remember, it was about truth, justice, and cosmic order?
Right. It's like the whole universe has to be in balance.
Yeah.
So what does that mean for how people live their lives?
Egyptians believed that living ethically, according to Ma'at, was vital for maintaining harmony both in this life and the afterlife.
Wow.
Imagine that your actions having consequences that extend beyond your earthly existence.
Wow, that's some serious motivation to be a good person.
It is.
But how did they know if someone had lived ethically? Do they have like a cosmic scorecard?
Well, they had the weighing of the heart ceremony in the afterlife.
Okay.
The deceased's heart was weighed against a feather, the feather representing Ma'at.
Mm-hmm.
If your heart was lighter than the feather, you passed the test and entered the afterlife.
Okay.
If not, well, let's just say things didn't go so well.
So it's like a final judgment based on your ethical choices throughout your life.
It is.
Pretty intense.
It really shows how deeply ethics was woven into their culture. It wasn't just a set of rules, it was a way of life connected to the very fabric of the universe.
Okay, so we've got Mesopotamia with its focus on clear laws and consequences, and Egypt with its cosmic approach to ethics.
Right.
What about ancient China?
Ancient China gives us Confucianism, a philosophy that profoundly influenced their ethics.
Yep.
Confucius, the founder, emphasized ren, which translates to benevolence or humaneness,
Okay.
and lai, meaning ritual propriety or social order.
So it's more about how you treat others and your role in society than about cosmic scales.
Precisely. Confucian ethics are all about maintaining harmony through personal virtues and proper relationships.
Go.
A key example is filial piety, respect for your elders.
Okay.
This principle shaped Chinese culture and governance for centuries.
It's like the foundation for a stable and respectful society,
It is.
rooted in strong family ties.
Exactly. It emphasizes that your ethical responsibilities begin with those closest to you and ripple outward to the wider community.
So far, we've seen a fascinating mix of approaches to ethics in these ancient civilizations.
We have.
What's next on our historical tour?
Let's venture into the world of ancient Greece. This is where we encounter some of the most influential ethical thinkers in Western history: Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle.
Okay.
Their ideas have shaped philosophical and ethical debates for centuries. Ready for some Greek philosophy?
Bring it on. I've always been intrigued by Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle, but sometimes their ideas can feel a little, well, ancient. How do they actually apply to our lives today?
That's a great question. Their ideas might be old, but they're surprisingly relevant to the ethical challenges we face even now. Let's start with Socrates. He believed that knowledge and virtue were inseparable, that true wisdom lay in understanding how to live a moral life.
So it's not just about knowing facts, it's about applying that knowledge to become a better person.
Exactly. And Socrates was famous for his unique approach to teaching the Socratic method. Instead of just lecturing, he engaged people in dialogues, asking probing questions to challenge assumptions and help them arrive at their own understanding of ethical truths.
That's interesting. So instead of giving people the answers, he wanted them to think critically for themselves.
Precisely. He believed that true understanding came from within, through self-reflection and rigorous examination of one's beliefs. Now, Plato, his student, took a more theoretical approach. He believed in a world of perfect, eternal concepts called forms, including the form of the good, which he saw as the highest knowledge, the source of all that is good and just.
Okay, that sounds pretty abstract. How does this form of the good connect to everyday ethics?
Think of it this way. Imagine a perfect circle. You can draw circles on paper, but they'll never be perfectly round. For Plato, the form of the good is like that perfect circle, an ideal we strive for, but can never fully grasp in this world. But by trying to understand and embody this ideal, we can become more virtuous and ethical people.
So it's like a guiding principle, something to aim for, even if we can't perfectly achieve it.
Exactly. And for Plato, justice wasn't just a personal virtue. It was also essential for a harmonious society. In his famous work, The Republic, he envisioned an ideal society ruled by philosopher kings, wise and virtuous leaders who understood the form of the good and could guide their people toward a just and harmonious existence.
Philosopher kings, that's a pretty lofty ideal. But I guess the point is that leadership should be based on wisdom and virtue, not just power or self-interest.
You got it. Now let's move on to Aristotle, another student of Plato. He took a more practical approach with his concept of virtue ethics, which we touched on earlier.
Right, the idea of developing good character traits. But how do we actually do that? It sounds like a lifelong project.
It is. But Aristotle offered some guidance. He believed that virtue lies in finding the golden mean, the balance between extremes. For example, courage is the mean between recklessness and cowardice. Generosity is the mean between extravagance and stinginess.
So it's not about blindly following rules, it's about finding that sweet spot, that middle ground where virtue resides.
Exactly. And he believed that by striving for eudaimonia, which roughly translates to flourishing or living well, we could achieve true happiness. For Aristotle, eudaimonia wasn't about fleeting pleasure, but about living a virtuous life fulfilling our potential as human beings.
It sounds like a very holistic approach to ethics, connecting virtue, happiness, and living a meaningful life.
Absolutely. The Greeks really laid the groundwork for Western ethical thought, giving us concepts and frameworks that are still relevant today. But our journey through history doesn't end there. Let's move on to the Romans, known for their emphasis on duty and public service.
Okay, so from Greek philosophy to Roman practicality, what new insights did the Romans bring to the table?
Well, they embraced a philosophy called Stoicism, which had originated in Greece but really took hold in Roman society. Stoics like Seneca, Epictetus, and even the Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius emphasized rationality, self-control, and living in accordance with nature.
So while the Greeks focused on virtue and happiness, The Romans were more about fulfilling your duty no matter what.
You could say that. Stoics believed in accepting what you can't control, focusing on your own virtue, and finding tranquility in the midst of life's ups and downs. They saw hardship not as something to avoid, but as an opportunity for growth and self-improvement.
That's pretty resilient. I can see how that philosophy would appeal to a powerful empire like Rome facing constant challenges and conquests.
Indeed. And it's a perspective that still resonates today, offering guidance on how to navigate the inevitable challenges and uncertainties of life with grace and resilience. But Stoicism wasn't the only influence on Roman ethics. We can't forget Cicero, a Roman philosopher and statesman who emphasized natural law, the idea that there are universal moral principles that transcend human-made laws.
So even in a vast and powerful empire, there's a higher moral authority that guides just governance.
Exactly. Cicero believed that true justice and ethical leadership should be grounded in these eternal principles, not just the whims of those in power. It's a powerful idea that has influenced legal and political thought for centuries.
So we've seen how ancient civilizations from Mesopotamia to Egypt to Greece and Rome grappled with fundamental questions of ethics shaping their laws, societies, and ways of life. Where do we go from here on our ethical exploration?
Well, after the Romans, the landscape of ethical thought shifted significantly with the rise of major world religions. These faith traditions brought new perspectives and frameworks for understanding right and wrong, good and evil, offering guidance on how to live a moral life that aligned with a higher purpose.
I'm really curious to explore that. How did religions like Judaism, Christianity, Islam, Hinduism, and Buddhism shape ethical thinking? Did they build on those ancient ideas or offer something completely different?
That's a fascinating question, and it's where we'll delve into next. Each of these religions has its own unique set of ethical teachings, but they also share some common themes about the importance of compassion, justice, and living in harmony with a divine order.
So we're moving from the philosophical realm of the Greeks and Romans into the spiritual domain of world religions. It's fascinating to see how these different traditions approach the big questions of ethics.
It is. Each of these religions offers a unique perspective, but they also share some common threads, particularly the emphasis on living a moral life that aligns with a higher purpose or divine will.
Okay.
Let's start with Judaism, one of the oldest monotheistic religions.
Okay, Judaism. What are some of the key ethical principles there?
Judaism is built on the concept of a covenant between God and the Jewish people.
Okay.
This covenant comes with responsibilities, a set of ethical obligations that guide how individuals should live their lives. It's not just about personal morality, it's about upholding your end of the agreement with God.
So it's like a two-way street. God provides guidance and protection. And in return, people are expected to live ethically, according to the teachings of the Torah.
Exactly. It emphasizes justice, compassion, and treating others with respect and dignity.
Okay.
The Ten Commandments, for instance, provide a clear moral code,
Right.
prohibiting actions like stealing murder and bearing false witness.
Right. Those commandments are pretty universal.
They are.
I've always found it interesting how they've influenced legal and ethical systems far beyond Judaism.
They have. Now, moving on to Christianity, which emerged from Judaism, we see a continued focus on love, compassion, and forgiveness.
Yeah, the golden rule, do unto others as you would have them do unto you, is a core principle in Christianity, right?
It is.
Yeah.
It encourages empathy and treating everyone with respect regardless of their background or beliefs.
Okay.
Christianity also emphasizes the importance of love, loving God and loving your neighbor.
Yeah.
This love is seen as a guiding force for ethical behavior.
So it's not just about following rules, it's about cultivating a loving and compassionate heart that informs your actions.
Precisely. Now, Islam, another Abrahamic religion, shares some similarities with Judaism and Christianity in terms of its ethical foundations.
Okay.
It emphasizes justice,
Oh.
adl, compassion, rahmah, and the importance of living in accordance with God's will.
I know Muslims believe in the 5 pillars of Islam.
Yes,
Do those pillars have an ethical dimension as well?
absolutely.
Okay.
For example, one of the pillars is zakat, which involves giving alms to the poor and needy.
Okay.
It's about sharing your wealth and caring for those less fortunate. Another pillar is fasting during the month of Ramadan,
Right.
which cultivates self-discipline and empathy for those who struggle with hunger.
So these religious practices are intertwined with ethical principles, encouraging both personal growth and social responsibility.
Exactly. Now let's shift gears a bit and explore Eastern religions like Hinduism and Buddhism.
Okay.
They offer different perspectives on ethics rooted in concepts like karma, dharma, and enlightenment.
Okay. I'm intrigued. Tell me more about the ethical teachings of Hinduism.
Oh.
I know they have a complex pantheon of gods and goddesses. Does that play a role in their ethics?
It does. Hinduism emphasizes the interconnectedness of all beings and the importance of living in harmony with the divine order, often personified through these deities.
Okay.
A key concept is dharma, which roughly translates to duty or righteous conduct.
Okay.
It encompasses both personal and social responsibilities.
So it's about fulfilling your obligations to your family, community, and to the divine.
Exactly.
Okay.
Another central concept is karma, the law of cause and effect.
Right.
It suggests that your actions have consequences not just in this life, but potentially in future lives as well. This belief encourages ethical behavior as a way to create positive karma and avoid negative consequences.
It's like a cosmic system of accountability, encouraging people to act in ways that create a more harmonious and just world.
You could say that. Now, Buddhism, which emerged from Hinduism, takes a slightly different approach. It emphasizes the importance of alleviating suffering and achieving enlightenment through practices like mindfulness meditation and ethical conduct.
I've heard of the Eightfold Path in Buddhism.
Yes,
Is that connected to their ethical teachings?
it is. The Eightfold Path is a guide to living a moral and fulfilling life,
Okay.
leading ultimately to liberation from suffering.
Okay.
It includes principles like right speech, right action, and right livelihood, encouraging ethical behavior in all aspects of life.
So it's not just about personal enlightenment. It's about creating a more just and compassionate world through your actions.
Exactly. Both Hinduism and Buddhism emphasize the importance of ahimsa, nonviolence, and compassion as core ethical principles.
Okay.
They encourage respect for all living beings, recognizing the interconnectedness of all things.
That's a beautiful concept. So we've seen how major world religions, from Judaism to Buddhism, have offered diverse but interconnected frameworks for ethical living, shaping the values and moral compasses of billions of people across the globe.
They have. And as we've explored this fascinating history of ethical thought, from ancient codes to religious teachings, we've seen how these ideas have influenced the development of laws, societies, and cultures across time and continents.
It's been an incredible journey. But where does that leave us today? How do these ancient and religious ethical frameworks apply to the complex challenges of the modern world?
Right.
What about those big questions of global justice, technological advancements, and the future of humanity?
Those are questions for another deep dive.
Okay.
But the insights we've gained from exploring the past can provide valuable guidance as we navigate the ethical dilemmas of the present and future. The quest for a just, compassionate, and ethical world is an ongoing journey.
Yeah.
And perhaps by understanding where we've come from, we can better chart a course toward where we want to go.
That's a great point. It's like having a compass to help us find our way through the ethical maze of the modern world.
Exactly.
Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the fascinating world of ethics.
My pleasure.
We hope it sparked your curiosity and given you some food for thought.
Absolutely.
Until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring, and keep striving to make the world a more ethical place.